2 hours ago, the Trump administration launched Section 301 trade investigations into 16 countries. China is on the list. The European Union is on the list. Mexico is on the list. Canada is not. For the first time in 18 months, Trump passed on an opportunity to hit Canada with new tariffs. The question everyone in Washington is asking: why? After spending a year and a half threatening to annex Canada, calling Mark Carney a governor instead of a prime minister, and slapping tariffs on everything from steel to aluminum to entire sectors of the Canadian economy, Trump just excluded Canada from his latest round of trade investigations. But before we break down what this means, if you appreciate this kind of analysis, hit that subscribe button and like this video so you never miss a story like this. The announcement came from U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer on Wednesday, March 12, 2026. 16 economies are now subject to Section 301 investigations under the Trade Act of 1974. China, the European Union, Singapore, Switzerland, Norway, Indonesia, Malaysia, Cambodia, Thailand, South Korea, Vietnam, Taiwan, Bangladesh, Japan, India, and Mexico. Notice what is missing from that list: Canada. The investigations focus on what the Trump administration calls structural excess capacity and production in manufacturing sectors. Greer said in a news release, "The United States will no longer sacrifice its industrial base to other countries that may be exporting their problems with excess capacity and production to us. The investigations will determine whether foreign acts, policies, and practices are unreasonable or discriminatory and burden U.S. commerce. If the answer is yes, tariffs follow." Section 301 investigations are significant because they do not require congressional approval. The U.S. Trade Representative can impose tariffs unilaterally once an investigation concludes a trading partner employs unfair practices. This is Trump's replacement strategy after the Supreme Court struck down his use of the International Emergency Economic Powers Act on February 20. The court ruled 6-3 that Trump could not use IEEPA for tariffs because the Constitution gives Congress power over taxes. Trump responded with a 10% global tariff using Section 122 of the 1974 Trade Act. But Section 122 tariffs expire after 150 days unless Congress extends them. That deadline is July 24, 2026. Section 301 offers a permanent solution. Here is what makes Canada's exclusion so striking. Mexico is on the list. Mexico is a CUSMA partner, just like Canada. Both trade under the same agreement. Yet Trump targeted Mexico while leaving Canada untouched. The White House has not responded to questions about whether Canada will be included in future investigations. Greer told reporters, "We do expect other Section 301 investigations on a country-specific basis. The door remains open. But for now, Canada is off the hook." Scott Lincecum, Vice President of General Economics at the Cato Institute, explained why it would be difficult for a Section 301 investigation to justify tariffs on Canada. He said in an email, "Given the nature of Canada's goods balance with the U.S., they could be unable to quickly point at a surplus and find the historic overcapacity they need to justify tariffs. Canada's trade surplus with the United States is largely caused by U.S. imports of Canadian oil." Statistics Canada reported Thursday that Canada's merchandise trade surplus with the U.S. was $5.4 billion in January, compared with $5.7 billion in December. Exports to the U.S. fell 3.8% and imports from the U.S. dropped 3.4%. The surplus exists because America buys massive amounts of Canadian energy. That is not overcapacity. That is dependency. Section 301 investigations target countries that produce more than they consume domestically, flooding markets with cheap goods that undercut U.S. manufacturers. China is the textbook example. China produces steel, solar panels, electric vehicles far beyond domestic demand, then dumps the surplus at prices U.S. companies cannot match. That is structural overcapacity. Canada does not fit that profile. Canada exports oil because the United States needs it. Canada exports lumber because American homebuilders demand it. Canada exports auto parts because American factories depend on integrated North American supply chains. None of that qualifies as unfair overcapacity. So why was Canada excluded? There are 3 possible explanations. First, Trump may finally be backing down. 18 months of escalation produced catastrophic results. The Supreme Court struck down his IEEPA tariffs. The House voted 219-211 to terminate his Canada emergency powers, with 6 Republicans defecting. The S&P 500 lost over $4 trillion in 3 weeks. Canadian tourists stopped coming, costing the economy $4.5 billion. Michigan Republicans are panicking because Trump's Canada obsession threatens their 2026 midterms. Trump threatened to block the Gordie Howe Bridge, sparking immediate political backlash. Maybe Trump realized attacking Canada is bad politics, bad economics, and bad law. Second, Trump may believe Canada is already sufficiently damaged. Existing tariffs on steel, aluminum, copper, and certain auto parts remain under Section 232. Those survived the Supreme Court ruling because they use different legal authority. Trump may calculate he has already extracted maximum leverage and does not need Section 301 for additional pressure. The July 2026 CUSMA review is approaching. Trump has threatened to terminate the agreement or break it into bilateral deals. By leaving Canada off the Section 301 list now, Trump preserves maneuvering room. If he hits Canada today, he burns a bargaining chip he might need in 4 months. Third, this could be a temporary exclusion. Greer stated that additional Section 301 investigations are expected. The White House did not rule out including Canada in future rounds. This may be tactical delay rather than strategic retreat. Trump could be waiting to see how Canada behaves before the CUSMA review. If Carney refuses concessions on dairy, digital regulation, or China trade, Trump can add Canada to a subsequent investigation. The door is open. The threat remains. Mark Carney has said nothing publicly about the exclusion. That silence is strategic. Carney knows that celebrating being left off the list would provoke Trump to add Canada out of spite. So Carney stays quiet. Let Washington interpret it however they want. Let analysts debate whether this is retreat, tactics, or oversight. What matters is the outcome. Canada is not on the list. That is a win. Here is what makes this moment so significant. For 18 months, Trump treated Canada like an adversary. He threatened to annex it. He called its prime minister a governor. He slapped tariffs on Canadian steel, aluminum, and lumber. He blocked infrastructure projects that would benefit both countries. He demanded Canada abandon trade talks with China. And through all of it, Carney refused to bend. He signed the China deal anyway. He built trade relationships with India, the EU, and Pacific nations. He redirected energy exports away from U.S. dependence. He activated retaliatory measures that hurt American businesses. He stood in Parliament and said, "Canada does not live because of the United States. Canada thrives because we are Canadian." And now Trump blinked. Not loudly, not publicly, but quietly. In a list of 16 countries, Canada is missing. That absence speaks louder than any press release. After 18 months of pressure, threats, and economic warfare, Trump could not find legal justification strong enough to hit Canada with Section 301. The overcapacity argument does not work. The trade surplus is energy-driven and reflects American demand, not Canadian dumping. The political cost is too high with midterms approaching. The economic damage to Michigan, New England, and border states is already severe. And the Supreme Court made clear Trump cannot invent legal authority whenever he wants. Mexico, meanwhile, is on the list. Mexico is a CUSMA partner. Mexico signed a framework trade agreement with the United States. Yet Mexico faces Section 301 investigation while Canada does not. The message to Mexico City: being a trade partner does not guarantee protection. The message to Ottawa: standing firm works. Carney refused to negotiate under threat. He built alternative markets. He demonstrated Canada could survive American economic pressure. And now Trump excluded Canada from the investigation, targeting nearly every other major U.S. trading partner. The timing matters. This announcement comes 3 weeks after the Supreme Court destroyed Trump's IEEPA tariffs. It comes 4 months before the July 24 deadline, when Section 122 tariffs expire. It comes 8 months before the 2026 midterms, and 4 months before the CUSMA review. Trump is running out of time, legal tools, and political capital. Section 301 is his last permanent tariff mechanism. He is deploying it against 16 countries, but not Canada. That exclusion is not an accident, it is not an oversight, it is recognition that Trump's Canada strategy has failed. 2 hours ago, the White House thought it was launching a comprehensive trade offensive against unfair foreign practices. 2 hours later, the biggest story is not who made the list, it is who did not. Canada spent 18 months preparing for this scenario. Trade deals with China, India, and the EU. Energy infrastructure to Pacific markets. Financial partnerships with the UK and Europe. Retaliatory tariffs targeting politically sensitive American states. A prime minister who refused to be intimidated. And now, when Trump deployed his most powerful remaining trade weapon, Canada was not in the crosshairs. Mark Carney is not reacting to Trump's moves anymore. He is 3 moves ahead. And Washington, for the first time in a very long time, does not know what to do about it. If this opened your eyes, smash that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and subscribe so you do not miss what happens.